Hello, parents, grandparents, future parents, and curious minds. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Steven.
And I'm PJ.
And this is
Dad's Disgust.
I said get discussed. I think.
Welcome, everyone. Just to start us out here, I am currently drinking one of my favorite light beers. I'm not a big light beer person, but Sapporo. I'm sure many of you have heard this if you've gone to any Asian restaurant. Very, very choice beer if you're feeling something casual.
And I'm sipping on a spiked refresher called Happy Thursday that popped up in Costco one day, and now we just really enjoy having these things because they're basically is a pre-mixed cocktail, and if you're not feeling beer or wine or one of the liquors, you can just pop these bad boys open and enjoy.
What's the alcohol percentage on something like that?
4.4, so
that's
it's like
not
a
bad.
beer.
Yeah, you got to be careful. Some of those seltzers I've seen in the store, it's like 8%. I'm like, well, hang on, that's like drinking 2 in 1.
Those are like the caution. These are hard seltzers or something ones.
Yeah, or that some of these marketing gimmicks are just the fact that their can designs don't look right. I've heard of people like taking like 1 or 2 of those in the morning thinking it was an energy drink, and then afterwards they're like, this was not an energy drink.
Oh man, and then you had Celsius that accidentally had a batch with alcohol in it, right?
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
But that, alcohol kind of leads into the discussion we're having today about mental health and kind of being aware of your mental state and making sure it doesn't affect your family.
Absolutely. One of the things that I wanted to start us off on in terms of this is like people who are addicted to certain substances or just anything in general. I really think it goes back to like your mental health, because it's addiction for the most part. Yes, sometimes it's like a craving, a physical need so that you don't have withdrawal symptoms, but a lot of it is due to your mental aspect. You've heard a lot of people who would smoke marijuana, and they would say, oh, well, before ADHD diagnosis, essentially I was just self-medicating. And I think that's actually very common. People will tend to recognize that their mental state is not in line with their peers, and sometimes they seek out ways to try and correct that.
Yeah, I see that with plenty of substances, right? Marijuana and sugar or alcohol or
caffeine, anything.
Yeah, just to try and keep up or whatever.
Yeah, anything that you think is going to have a positive, or hopefully in your opinion, positive impact on your mental state in order to either stay alert, such as drinking energy drinks at a construction job, or, smoking marijuana to kind of like calm down after a long day. But in the end, what you're doing is changing your mental state.
Yeah, trying to use something outside the natural norm to modify the way your brain's behaving.
Definitely. And I for one, I do partake in many things, but I also recognize that especially in this country, we have a very, very large problem of mental health that is not being addressed. And in my opinion, it's only going to get worse before it gets better, as it's just not being addressed. Like no one is going after this.
Yeah. First off, I guess how can we as parents, start getting a leg up with our kids to avoid them falling into the traps that society has set now?
I think communication is key, just like it is between a partner and their spouse. But like we don't shy away from talking about what other people would say is like the tough topics with our kids. You say they say you're never supposed to talk about politics and religion at the dinner table, but I mean, you take your kids to church, like you're talking about religion. Why would you not talk to them about politics? So when we see, unfortunately, just the parade of mass shootings that have been happening in this country for a long time, like we don't shy away about talking about it. We try and help them we try and help to explain to them in like a proper way why something like this would occur and how we can, avoid it or not let something like that happen in our family. Yeah.
Teach safety drills and what to do with the run, hide, fight methods and things like that.
Yeah, which I think we had talked about that on a previous podcast. I know we had... Didn't you say that your office had done one of those drills before?
Yeah. We do those every once in a while because, the nature of the business, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's, for those who don't know, your first option in a situation like that's always to run. But if you can't find an exit, close enough that would make sense, then you hide. And if that all fails, then you put up a fight because that's where you are.
Yep. It's just sad that in today's day and age, we have, in, as you said, the hide aspect. They're building essentially bulletproof shelters that can be installed in classrooms.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to be that way. You shouldn't
No.
have to be scared that you're going to die at school uh,
No, and
in a gunfight.
some of that buys into the narrative of it's gonna happen again, right? Like the more you feed it, the more anxious people get, the more it's gonna occur, right? Like,
Yeah.
but the flip side is you got to protect people. So it's like, how do you balance like the protection of the glass and stuff is like trying to react to it rather than solve the underlying issue that you talked about at the beginning. How do we get to that root cause of what's driving all of us a little insane these days? And some of that I think boils down to cultural narratives and not knowing, or maybe, I don't know. I could go around so many different circles, but which way do I want to take that? Some of it, I think, partially has to do with, a lot of time of peace and being a nation that's been the driving force of the world for a while. And so peace at home leads to a little bit of unrest where people are itching to find problems. And other part of it is just what the social narrative looks like and who's in charge and driving everybody's mental state. Because if the news cycle is constant chaos where everybody forgets what happened last week, then you're going to drive a lot of people insane because it's going to be same stuff, different day, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I think a big part of it is just social media and the news narrative. You never, and it's been this way for decades, you never flip on the news and hear something positive. It's always just constant negativity. This person's doing this, that person's doing that. They both hate each other. You should hate that person.
Yeah.
You should hate this group. Things like that. Uh, but on the flip side, you do not want to bury your head in the sand and
Mm-hmm.
never stay abreast of information. I've
Right.
heard there was a meme one time where it said, "How do I keep myself from getting sucked into all this negativity?" And the guy just turned his TV off. I can't say I follow that method because then
Yeah.
you're not keeping abreast of the
Right.
world. But people need to do a better job of, and you said, having their mental health be sound enough that they are not swayed just by hearing someone
Right.
talk about something. You need to digest the information, make your own.
Somehow always stay neutral. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't exactly know what I'm trying to say, but basically, I do think the media in general and social media is pushing the narrative that
Yeah.
makes people, act out or,
Yeah.
go a little crazy, if you will.
Yeah. And I think some of that's driven by, I don't know if this was something I was thinking of or if I read it in somebody's theory, but news used to be like an upstanding field that like everybody admired for like pure journalism and just reporting on things and leaving opinions out because all they had to do is deep research a topic for 2 weeks and it'd be the big thing that blew up. Now it's like things blow up every 5 minutes and everybody's trying to get their bag and get their money, feed negativity because they don't have to do the research. They can say something and it'll blow up viral and they'll make their money on it and they can go move to the next thing because everybody's going to forget who the author was of that thing that was reported on
Yeah, I
that
will
they
say the
drew.
biasness that I've noticed in news articles is just it's almost like you're reading opinion pieces nowadays. Like
Yeah.
it's clearly biased one way or the other depending upon who's writing it, and the clickbait titles just give me
Don't help.
headaches. It's like if
Yeah.
I see something that doesn't give me a pretty good understanding of what I'm about to read, I just don't even click on it anymore because I do not want to give them the satisfaction of saying, "Oh, we pulled someone in for these views."
Yeah. And I'd say the one guy that I really enjoy as like a pure journalist is the Channel 5 guy on YouTube. I don't know if you ever heard of him. His name's Andrew Callahan. And he came up on YouTube as just like being this dorky guy in a suit that would go to parties and like shove a microphone in people's face and like barely say anything and just let people talk. And that's kind of how he got like all his followers. And then he like had a bottomed out mental health thing and he went back and like he was like, well, I always wanted to be a journalist, but this is what like got me viewers or whatever. So he once he bounced back from the bottom, he just like started purely doing like going into crazy places and like letting people talk about their situations. So like all his videos are on like he went to Israel and just like put a mic in front of people, and he goes to Mexico and like the craziest places and everywhere around the US, like Trump rallies, Biden rallies. He did an interview recently with the guy that was asking a question to Charlie Kirk while at the point he got shot. And that
Oh,
guy
I
was
I heard
actually
about that
quite
guy.
fascinating, yeah.
Okay.
So he did an interview with him. He did an interview with Hunter Biden, Pete Buttigieg, and then he just now he has like correspondence in like different countries and stuff. It's a pretty cool channel as far as like looking at pure journalism, because he doesn't, if he does like a video like on a topic that he's interested in, he'll bring his opinion in. But when he's doing like all the other videos, he just like gives people a microphone and a voice, and he'll just be like, so what do you think of that? Tell me more. Like they report it themselves rather than him doing anything.
Okay. Yeah, no, I respect that because so much of it, as we mentioned, was I just don't feel like there's a lot of journalists left like that. Everyone has their opinions and they want to get
Mm-hmm.
their opinions put into their pieces. We've definitely gone off on a pretty big tangent here,
It's
but
all, yeah.
I think it ties into the
Oh
fact that
yeah.
it's just so there
But
is just so much information being thrown at people that it's almost too much to handle, I guess. I don't know.
yeah.
All I can say is that the mental state, at least of this country, is definitely much worse off than it was, decades and decades earlier, or at least it seems that way to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing you don't know if your brain's tricking yourself, and the fact that we, see it on our screens, but, living it real life. I don't have too many people that have gone off the deep end other than one guy from high school, though. Just because it's not happening doesn't mean you can ignore it, though. So it's kind of tough. I mean, you still see people on the streets, even in our town, of, just have had a bad life and they're down and out and look like they're in a really rough place. So,
Yep.
yeah, you say it's all going off on tangents, but it all does play into the mental narrative of, we're consuming these things on our phone. I was going to say you have the negative aspect that we talked about, but the flip side is there's not a lot. I try and strive to find it, but not a lot of in between that negative aspect and like the super positive brain rot videos that are like 5 minute shorts or
If
less
even
than
less
that.
than, yeah, five
They're like,
seconds.
yeah, 5 seconds, and then you move on. And we even have a term, doom scrolling, now compared
Right.
to, or I guess that would be positive scrolling if you were watching just videos that are silly, but it just reminds you of the Idiocracy movie where they're watching Ouch My Balls on TV.
Oh, we've
'Cause,
definitely made it to that point. Yeah, I agree. Which is a great movie, by the way.
yeah.
I'm reminded of, and this, just it's somewhat sliding into the religion aspect, but as we mentioned on this podcast before, both me and Steven are Catholic. C.S. Lewis wrote a series of short stories called the Screw Tape Letters, and basically the premise is it's an apprentice demon speaking with his master demon on how best to capture human souls. And
Hmm.
one of the talking points he says is we need to get them so involved in things that they never have a moment to think for themselves.
Mm.
Keep their minds occupied by their phones, radio, sports, television, just they are flooded with so much information that they never have time to sit down and think about things that may be more important in their life.
Yeah.
So that's something I definitely feel like has played an impact on us. We are so focused on receiving information that it's really draining. Like at some point, you do have to turn it off for a little bit. I'm not saying completely, but it'll start to get to you.
Yeah, I agree. I had the coolest idea from a friend, and obviously I've never had time for it because of kids and whatnot. But they said, I don't remember what it was. It's been a while since they told me the idea, but they basically left everything at home and just wore clothes and went out for a walk, and they'd be back eventually. And they'd do that like every so often, like every other month or something like that. And they just eventually make it back home, but they would just start walking, and it'd help them clear their mind and see the world and take a break from all the BS
Oh,
that
I'm
they're
sure.
dealing with.
Absolutely. No, I like that. I do.
Yeah, that's why I think I've always loved the Boy Scout outings and things like that that I grew up with that I need to get into my kids and camping and stuff because I just crave that, like, just go do something
Kind
that
of
doesn't
tune
involve the
out for a little
world.
bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
leave your phone in the car for a couple hours type deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I know that I don't do it very often and it kind of, I do get that itch to like check my phone way too much, you know?
Yeah. I will say in terms of just the mental health epidemic that we're seeing, there's just not a good, at least in my opinion, what am I trying to say? Like if anyone does have like a mental health issue, for the most part, it's probably going unnoticed because no one is reaching out to them and saying, "Hey, are you okay?" You know,
Yeah,
no one at the school age level, especially with kids, are saying, "Hey, this kid seems like they probably could use some help, like they're off." Uh, and especially for our generation, like no one did that. They just said, "Oh, you're addicted to sugar. You probably have ADHD. Here's some medicine." Which sometimes those medicines have made the situation worse.
worse, yeah.
So we need to do a better job of both recognizing the signs and then coming up with ways
Yeah.
to help prevent it.
But it's so hard, and I don't know, because like I've thought about that sometimes, and it's like, you know, you see someone else's kid, and you're like, maybe that's a sign, but then you, parent to parent, I'm never gonna, at least I feel like I'm never gonna tell another parent that, like, you know, how do you tell someone, I think your kid's a little, you know, on the whatever spectrum it might
Yeah,
be, because, you know, Catherine and I do a lot of, you know, reading into it because of worry for our own kids and wanting to intervene as soon as possible if there's a problem detected. So, but she does most of the research. Sometimes I look up stuff, but and we'll talk to like doctors and things about it, and you know the pediatrician and whatnot. And I'm like, well, we talked about that one the other day, and I saw it in a kid at the brewery or something doing that sign, but like you're never gonna tell another parent, hey, da da da, and especially one you don't know very well, right?
right,
So
exactly. So there's not a good way for people to, and unless you're invested in it, like you said, you and Catherine are, a lot of parents probably aren't, or they just don't have the time to. So they may not pick up on the signs, and
yeah,
so it's
yeah. So how do you get that in for? I guess you gotta somehow make it like everybody talks about adding this or that curriculum to public school. So, but it's like that won't help it if the parents don't know anything. Like, so you gotta add some parental education. I don't know if you support a society where you give like free lessons at a college or something to people becoming parents or something like that on the medical things to look out for in a kid or something.
yeah, and
And
so
if
and
that
so
would
much
make
of it comes down to, do you even want to be helped? I think we're
true.
seeing so many of these people that do have mental health issues that go unnoticed until it boils over into something catastrophic, such as a mass shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Did that person even want to seek help if they were given the option?
True.
It's I kind of take it back to going to therapy. I've never been myself. I just can't justify the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but some people do and some people don't. And if they don't have the money for it, but even if they did want to do it, what if they can't do it? So we don't have avenues for these people to
Yeah.
seek the help, even if they recognize there is a problem.
True. Yeah, because therapy is not cheap, especially if you miss your appointments.
Not to make light of a bad
Yeah.
situation, but another meme I remember is there was a therapist talking to his patient, and he said, "Just remember that nobody owes you anything except me. You owe me $250."
Yeah. Well, sometimes when you're talking about dark stuff, laughter's the best medicine, right?
That's
So,
true. That is true.
um, but yeah, this is a topic that's always been kind of close to home with me because of my brother, right? So since we lost him at way too early of an age, and now I'm older than he ever was, so it's like, how do you protect those around you from falling into a dark place, I guess? And you know, some of that is having conversations like we do on the podcast here, and sometimes it's having deeper conversations with friends at a birthday party or something to ask them how they're doing. Or there was a initiative that I tried years ago, which was to just start with the A's in my
I remember you
contact
talking
list,
about
and
that. Yes.
just texting everyone, and I didn't make it even to the bees because it's just such a time commitment. But I want to resurrect that in some way. Maybe I call a different friend every week or something like that, and just work my way down a list or something.
Yep. Now I think if you are someone who is empathetic, or at least caring enough to have that capacity, yeah, it certainly can help, especially for someone who may be going through a rough time period. They may not be in a full blown depressive state, but
Yeah,
just an encouraging word, or just a small reach out to say, "Hey, you doing okay?" It can make a
yeah,
difference. So I recommend anyone who is currently listening and may feel like they're struggling to reach out.
mm-hmm.
We had talked about before that there's not a lot of avenues, but there are some, and I just don't want to see anyone have to go through that, especially with the state of this world. It's almost all too easy.
Yeah. And the thing we lack the most right now is connection, right? So that's why you see, like on the news and stuff, all that. I mean, most of the mental health stuff can be, I'm not going to say all of them, but most of them can be brought back to people that are lonely, right? Like
That's
just,
interesting that you said that, because I personally have not looked into this too much, but I know there's entire podcasts on like serial killers and things like this. But I
mm,
was just wondering, like, what are the statistics on, like, who is the ones that are doing this the most? Are they
yeah.
older males? Are they single males? Are they married, middle aged people, like with
Hmm.
children, without children? I'd like to know the statistics on that.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I don't know if you'd have a perfect picture because, especially in the serial killer category, because there's not a ton of them, so your data points would be kind of small, right? But
I don't know, not in this country.
that's fair. But yeah, just something that triggers people to want to take a life is want to take a life, right? Rather than being a soldier where you have to take a life
Yeah,
because
big
you're putting,
difference.
yeah, big difference.
Hmm.
That's a whole nother conversation of
Oh,
mental health.
absolutely. And we'll date the podcast here, but especially with the situation that's happening over with the IDF, we have a little
I
guest
guess,
coming
but
into our podcast room.
I guess we were talking about mental health for soldiers a little bit. I don't know. That sort of applies to family for us and the fact that the kids have an uncle that's in the military, right? So it's like every time he goes on deployment, everybody's a little more tense around the family than when he's back home in the States. So
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely. I
it's
know
like,
my mom
oh,
used to talk about that, as my her father was in the Navy, and yeah, he'd be gone for months at a time, and you weren't allowed to talk to them back then. They didn't
mm-hmm.
have phones like that.
Yeah, yeah. Luckily now he's able to, check in. It's really not all the time, but every once in a while you'll see him pop up in the family chat and say hi and stuff. But still, it's like not the same as
Yeah,
being in state still.
and that is something that I think they have done a decent amount of work on, is recognizing the signs of PTSD, which, I mean, there for a while they didn't even have a term for it. They used to call it shell shock, and I'm not sure
Yeah,
if you've ever seen some of the old videos or photos of what soldiers in World War I and World War II went through.
yeah,
But you could tell that they were like mentally unstable, and
mm-hmm.
but we didn't know why.
Right,
So
yeah.
we've done a better job about it, but I still don't think we're doing the best job of
I mean,
helping it.
yeah. I mean, common sense. You should have been at least been like, this guy's been through hell. Something's gotta be messed up
Right.
afterwards. Yeah, the war is not a pretty thing, and don't take lightly of entering bodies into the battlefield, especially now that we're kind of getting into more serious ones these days.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the IDF before our little break there, and
I did, yeah. And I think
that area is a mess.
that's a whole other topic. But if you are in a position where you're being given orders to do something, at what point do you yourself have to say, "Hey, is this ethical? Is this something I believe in? Or am I going to do this?" And that's
Yeah,
hopefully that's a choice that I never have to make myself.
right. That's that harks back to my comment of United States as a nation internally. We've had a lot of peacetime, so I don't even know how we would react with our forces if we were dragged into a war sort of thing, because most of the time back in the day we would be like, all right, let's all put aside our differences and go off and fight this mega threat sort of thing. And now if that happened at the current state of things, I don't know if you'd end up with, well, my side thinks they're not a threat and this side thinks they are a threat, and then we just start fighting each other, and then whoever the new power is over us, and we're the small fry again.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, especially if you look at recruiting numbers for the military branches. They're way down compared to where they have been in the past, and part of that is people just coming to terms of, hey, I don't think this is something that I want to do, or it's not something I have to do. Like my family's now in a position where the military is not like my only option.
Yeah.
But also just people in general, as you've said, they now kind of have that voice in the back of their head saying, is this something that I truly believe in? Like, do I think that we are doing the right thing? Or, and unfortunately, you hear a lot of veterans coming back saying the same thing. They're like, I did 2 tours in Iraq, and I'm not sure why we were there.
Yeah, right.
So, yep.
Yeah, the forever wars that we finally
Yep.
withdrew from.
Yeah, withdrew, and in a month let the same organization that we were fighting take back control of the country.
Right. Yeah, so what was it worth, right?
Yep.
But some of that goes down to poor planning and things like that.
It always goes back to the oligarchs in power, doesn't it?
Right, yeah. And they control our mental health anyways.
Unfortunately, they do, and I know we keep bringing up journalism because I think that is a big part of it. I think it's a really big part of it, and so much of the media nowadays are controlled by like a few single individuals. So how much is true reporting or just pushing the narrative that individual wants?
Right.
Especially when you meant, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good.
Because especially in terms of like doom scrolling, they say that you create your own algorithm, but I know that's not true. Like I'm fed stuff all the time that just doesn't make sense to what I'd be.
Well, they're trying to get you to put that into your algorithm.
Yeah, they
so
are.
So they're trying to, because most of it's going to be your algorithm, and then they'll try and tweak it a little bit to try and get you off on whatever the topic of the day is. So then it adds it to, they're interested in this.
Yeah, no,
I'm not.
Yep.
I'm not
interested. Do not show me turning points.
But it's a crazy world we live in at the moment. But staying within your bounds and enjoying time with your family is kind of gonna curb a lot of that outside influence and whatnot. Trying to read and digest a wide variety of things that's not just one side or another. And that's why I try and label myself as the independent politically, because I don't want to be steered one direction or another. I want to hear from both sides, because I think you take some from each side and you have a perfect middle. Something perfect lies in the middle, not on the extremes.
Oh yeah.
So there's no point in fighting for one or the other.
And so much of that just comes down to, I would say, a majority of the population does not have that mindset. They almost want someone to tell them how they should think. There's not a lot of people with the critical thinking skills to determine what they believe is right and wrong, or right versus wrong.
Right. Or accept that they could have had it wrong at some point.
Oh yeah, no.
And change your opinion.
There is definitely no changing of opinions nowadays. Rarely do I see anyone who has something to say that would ever back down, or if they were presented correct information, would change their viewpoints.
Right.
So it's just very, very one track mindset for most individuals. And if this person doesn't agree with me, then they're always going to be wrong and I'll always be right. So we've just lost that critical thinking aspect, if we ever had it in the first place.
I think so. Yeah, because the big thing I ran into when I was, big on, or got sucked into the social media landscape, and probably fell down to a little bit of a pit back in the COVID days, because there's not much to do while a baby laid on your lap, right? And so the they say the intolerant left and the wild right or something like that, because it was crazy that I would sit there, because Twitter was at the time mainly left-sided. And I was like, the left is so good. They have like so many good ideas for like a social landscape, and like taking care of the bottom line and making sure everybody's not really an equal stake, but at least like not falling into dismay. And then it's like you say one thing out of line with the narrative though, and everybody jumps down your neck, even if they were like on your side the day ago. And it was like crazy just dealing with that. And it was like, why do you have to be so hard line on things? Why can't you just let somebody step around a subject or like not want to talk about something?
Absolutely, and I don't like this person individually, but the same thing happened on the other side of the aisle with Candace Owens. She questioned the rights narrative, and they disowned her.
Yeah.
And now she is like a nobody. So yeah, if you don't
Yeah.
follow that one track mindset that they think you should have, then everyone else is wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
that's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. I guess if you 100% agree with whatever track they're going down with, you're fine. Otherwise, just stay out of it because you're just going to drive yourself crazy trying to please everybody.
Yeah, and I hate that that's the society that we are having to bring our children up in, but maybe it's always been this way, and just now that we have access to instant media, we're just seeing it more. Maybe
Yeah.
50 years ago, when you only were within your small circles, you didn't really travel much. Everyone you thought had very similar views, and you didn't worry about it as
Yeah.
much. But nowadays, you just, I can get news
Yeah.
what's happening in a different country the second it happens. And
Yeah.
we've never lived in a society like that before.
And it's weird because now you're dealing with, hey, I'm exposed to something across the world that I have zero impact on, but I don't see what's in front of me that's like a guy on a street that I can have 100% impact on and make a difference in their life. So
Definitely.
we've moved from a state of taking care of each other, people nearby, to a state of caring about the whole world and just only doing that and not taking any action because you're just so overloaded.
Definitely. Unfortunately, that has a negative impact on most people's mental health, I believe. As I mentioned, most news is negative, and so you hear about these stories across the world, or, even uh, here in America, which is a very large country land wise. If there's a mass shooting that occurs across the country, you feel powerless, but it makes your mental health go down.
Right. Yeah, it makes you sad for the people involved. And
Absolutely.
yeah, we talk about it with, the latest since this podcast that probably had the widest effect on the nation was that assassination of Charlie Kirk. And it was wild being on work travel during that period because it was like everybody seemed to be talking about it when you go out and about places. And it was like the guy at the golf range was like, yeah, I was supposed to be there for the memorial, but I had to work and stuff like that. Like he was going to drive 2 states over just to go to it. And like,
Right. And that's why I said that's why the media has so much influence. And, I would say even 50 years ago, something like that happened, you wouldn't even hear much from it because people would not have even heard who this individual was.
yeah,
But the travel of information just occurs so fast, and people are very quick to come up with
yeah.
their opinions on a certain subject.
Yeah, you didn't have political commentators that would span the nation other than a few late night show hosts back in the
Right.
day.
You
Now
might not
it's
have even heard the president speak unless you tune into like the State of the Union or watch the presidential debates. They just
yeah.
didn't have that flow of information
You
that we
just
have
had to
now.
trust your government was doing the right thing. Now we don't trust the government's doing the right thing and want to know everything they're doing because we want to micromanage
Yeah.
instead of just putting faith in someone because the personalities are too wild. The personalities are on the extremes these days,
Oh,
and
they
so
absolutely are.
you can't trust anyone
Yeah.
when
So
you just want.
and what can we do? What can we do to help our kids, grow up in this type of environment and help them navigate, what's only going to continue.
Yeah, part of that is in my mind, and I try to stay active in it. Is just look around the things you can affect, like local politics, local nonprofits, local companies that are trying to do good, support the farmers around you by buying their fresh stuff. Uh, Vote for actually go to like town halls and stuff, which I've never been to one, but it's on the to do list. Go to your PTO board meetings and have a say in your kids' school and affecting the friends around them because if you offer a place for them to play, they're safer there than out in the streets or whatever.
This is true. No, I'm glad you brought that up. So much of it is we're worried about things that are outside of our control, but there is still a pretty decent amount of things that you individually can control, especially within your inner circle.
Yeah.
And just having that foresight to be like, hey, everything may seem a little overwhelming right now, but there's something that I can control that can, kind of ease it. Or say this individual, like, I have $5 in my pocket here. This would benefit you more than it
Yeah.
would me right now.
Yeah.
So,
Little things like that, and even just, the smallest drop can create ripples, right? And then maybe it'll create more drops down the line. So even if you only have one or two or three or however many kids, if you can teach them how to take care of those around them and not be evil, I guess, they're going to live by that example, and those around them might change because of it.
yeah, that's
I
what you hope for.
saw a big example of that in our kids' daycare back in the day. This was a couple years ago when our oldest was going through it, and there was a friend she didn't like because we taught, our kid that, potty words you shouldn't use unless you actually have to go to the potty. And she was like, well, this friend uses it all the time and I don't like it. And I was like, well, tell him you don't like it. And if he doesn't stop, then just walk away, and either he'll change or he won't. And she said she started doing that, and next time when we talked about it, he wasn't doing it anymore. So it was
That's
like,
great. That's fantastic.
you have an influence around those you hang out with and stuff. And I think another example was, going through college, we always picked on each other a bunch, as the guys tend to do. And, Catherine would be like, man, you're just a whole different person with some people, and it's like super negative. And I was like, you're right. And so I just try and start using positive language in certain groups and stuff like that, and it kind of fades off to be a once in a while thing rather than a, hey man, whatever jabs we used to do. I don't know.
Fair enough. No,
I
I
don't
don't.
even remember them at this
Oh,
point.
not at all.
Hey, how did jumping across a staircase work for you
Oh, I
there?
have a permanent mark on my leg from that one for sure. I will say that controlling what you can control makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And that's something that I hope that I am able to instill in them, is that you may not be able to solve all the world's problems. No one can. But you do have control over what happens within your life and within, like, the small inner circle around you. So be that positive influence, be that positive force that can, as you said, hopefully create enough ripples that eventually it will change things.
Yeah. And we'll see a brighter future because of it, hopefully.
Hopefully so.
But you never know. It's harder to impact, and sometimes you want to make a bigger change. Occasionally you want to run for a governorship or something like that to stop something crazy from going in. But or hey, maybe I should run for president so that that guy doesn't do it. And then you realize, yeah, the chances of that are like slim to none. So maybe I'll just help the guy next door because he's going through a hard time.
Yep. Unfortunately, just so much is out of our control, and unless you have the resources, which at least in this country, to get into any type of political landscape, even at the local level, you have to have more resources than the average individual.
Yeah.
It's just sticking to being able to control what you can in your own little circle is the best avenue I can think of.
Yeah. And the not only resources, but we talked about mental health and stuff, but it's kind of brave at this point if you're not gonna fall into one of the two party lines. It's pretty, if you're gonna stick your neck out there and try and be something different, you're gonna get lambasted, and your family's gonna be on target, and
Oh, absolutely.
everything's gonna be out in the open,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna know your street address, and they're gonna know, and it'd be a scary thing to just put a sight on you like that.
Absolutely.
I'd like to believe that if you stuck your neck out to be an independent, you're gonna take a lot of heat off of you, but I don't know. It's still a fine line if you were to enter politics and try and keep your mental health, which I think is part of the reason why people get so dismayed in there.
I think so. And in terms of just mental health in general, we've talked about this before, but for those that have become, worldly successful, such as company CEOs and big name politicians, like they already had a mindset before going into that I myself could never see. Like I just don't have that type of mindset of I'm going to tread over everyone else so that I can get to the top.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because that's the way society's currently built. Like
exactly. Rarely
you,
do you find someone who is in a position of power that got there nicely, if you will.
yeah, yeah. You would hope it's not that way, but that's the way it currently is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd hope that it's you helped so many people along the way that they wanted to raise you up to that level, right? And you find that occasionally at places, but it's few and far between.
Oh yeah.
Especially when the at least public sector economy is driven by success, and so if one CEO is not doing it right, they'll kick him out and have zero loyalty and put in a new one.
Right. Yeah. Whoever can bring us the most money.
Yeah, that's why it's nice to live in the public or private sector world where that doesn't matter as much. I mean, you still want to be profitable, but you don't have shareholders that you're beholden to that are going to drive you to the point of profit over people.
Yep.
You can make decisions that are the betterment for the people in your company rather than a few people that own your company.
Yeah, this is very true. And like you said, that mindset is few and far between. As for the most part, if something like that were to occur and you start to see your profits dipping in a publicly traded company, the board of directors will most likely be like, "This is not the direction we want the company to go. We're not seeing the money that we were expecting."
Yeah. Which is, we're going the mental health state into business, but we're both in ESOPs that it's like, then you have a lot of buy-in from the employees to drive success of the company because they want to retire too, right? So
You do, yep. And we've talked about this before, but both of us have also, through different career changes and things like that, we've worked up until we got to this spot. And, it certainly wasn't like the first thing that we were able to get into, but through trial and error, we kind of discovered that this is something that we think is the most beneficial, or at least something that we want to stick with for a while.
right. And I think some of the, like you said, ways to counteract the negative rise to power is, as we become higher level professionals, just if we ever have the chance to promote someone that, would do a great job rather than someone that has to do the job is going to go a long way. Or hiring someone completely unknown, right?
Absolutely.
Just trying to have some sort of vetting process that tells you, hey, this person's got a good mindset for people and isn't going to take advantage of anyone, and I'm not going to get any HR complaints.
I like how you said vetting process, because that's something that, as we spoke about earlier, I don't think there is a good vetting process on who is mentally unstable or who may be having, severe depression.
Yeah.
So we need to get better about recognizing these signs and offering solutions so that mental health, just in the general state of society, can be elevated.
Yeah. And how to get the right people to seek out help, like you said, because I think our company offers at least a couple like mental health checks or whatever throughout a year.
Okay.
Like they'll pay for it or something like that. I can't remember. I haven't looked into it enough. I should. Like, because you never know who might need that. And you can be like, hey, you're going through a hard time. The company offers this, right? And that might save someone's life. You never know.
Yeah, this is very true. It absolutely could, especially for someone who's thinking about, doing something evil to a fellow employee or to themselves. If just being able to recognize that someone is asking about my mental state, and can this person maybe help me, and just having that opportunity.
Deep stuff, man.
It is.
That's why I like looking at the picture of the happy couple on the wall while we talk.
I'm just staring at our whiteboard, and it's funny because every time I look up there, I see the words "to do," talking about things we need to prepare for before we start our podcast, and I keep thinking to myself, what is the topic of air pure? But that's not a topic.
That's just the to-do list. We could talk about air purity. I mean, pollen pollution is.
Oh my goodness, yes. No, there's just so much going on in the world. We'll hopefully try and keep it relatively close to being a father or being a parent. But
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, that drives energy levels, which drives our utility bill, right? So we
oh,
got to pay
absolutely,
that for the
I'm sure
family.
everyone's feeling the burden from that. But there
Yeah.
has been studies done, the various things that affects one's mental health, and access to clean water or
Oh, yeah.
access to good health care. Like those things impact someone. The biggest one I remember is that there was a lot of people that were committing suicide in the
Mm.
Seattle region, and so they did a couple studies, and they basically determined it's just due to the weather.
Jeez.
Uh,
Wow.
Not cheese. Oh, I think.
Jeez.
Geez, okay. No, that the amount of days that it's overcast and rainy there compared to the amount of days that are sunny, and they said we think that like the lack of sunlight is truly affecting the mental health of this area
Wow.
compared to other parts of the world.
Is that why British humor is so dry?
I think that's probably part of it.
And why they loved Indian food when it came rather than their bland
Oh,
fish
right.
and
The
chip?
wars
No.
have been fought over the spice
Yeah,
trade. Yeah.
yeah, I said we had to have some more hot topics on the podcast, get people fired up. Maybe the attack on the British is a little too soon.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the topic of food. And I was like, Steven, I'll talk about that all day.
But yeah, I did finances too is a big driver of mental health, right? Because
Absolutely.
we were alluding to that a little bit in that not tangent, but discussion. Because if you're down on your luck or deeply in debt, you're gonna be way more depressed than you are when your times are good and everybody's eating and everybody's happy.
Absolutely. I'm reminded of another thing I saw where it said, whoever came up with the slogan, money does not bring happiness. It's like, well, if I had more money, it would solve a lot of my problems right now.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, that's just how it is. If you don't have to worry about where my next meal's coming from or is my child going to be taken care of because I have the resources and financial stability for it,
yeah,
it eases a lot of the mental strain that so much of the population is under.
yeah. And when you're met with this, when your society or nation has built itself around consumerism, it doesn't help, strengthen the financial sector very much,
No,
except
not
for
at
the
all.
top people at the top.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then we don't do a good job of taking care of those who do not have that financial safety net. I mean, we haven't raised the minimum wage in decades. So
yeah,
if you are in a position where that is your only source of income, you're working two, sometimes three jobs just to be able to
yeah.
support yourself, let alone trying to support yourself and
And
a family.
that alone's gonna destroy you mentally,
Absolutely.
and physically, because you can only keep that up so long.
Definitely.
And then you gotta always remind yourself that the minimum wage doesn't even solve a portion of the problem. It definitely helps, but like even then there's so many other problems that are going on that once you raise the minimum wage, it does other things, and then you got to find a balance. So it's like you need someone with a comprehensive plan rather than a partial plan, right? To really make some movement happen,
Yep, definitely.
and a lot of people to buy into it.
And a lot of that is controlled. As I said, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but so many of these people that like run corporations, they'll say, oh well, such and such had this effect, that's why we're raising our prices. No, you're raising your prices just because you want a greater profit. Like, whatever
Yeah.
you just said has no impact on the
Yeah.
downstream productions.
Yeah, you won't like what the Arizona Tea Company or whatever.
Right,
They're
yeah.
like, screw you guys, we're always gonna sell it for $1 because we're making enough profit to stay
Yeah.
afloat. Like, I don't care.
Or that Costco always selling hot dogs and a drink for $1.50.
Yeah.
I actually heard that their board of directors had requested to increase the price, and I guess whoever was over that at the time, like, it got into a heated argument. He's like, I'm never going to do that. Like, we're never raising the price of this. This is
This
a selling
defines
point.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they make their money, right? Like you just change that, and then people aren't coming in as often, right?
Oh,
They just want to get people in the door.
yeah, we'll throw one company under the bus. Have you seen what's been happening to Microsoft after they jacked up the price on Game Pass?
No, I didn't.
So many people flooded the servers to try and cancel their membership that it crashed it.
No way.
Yeah, but they
Wow.
were trying to raise their price of my monthly membership by 50%.
Jeez.
So everyone, yeah, I mean, eventually you get to a point where the consumer says, "I've had enough, and I'm not paying for this anymore."
Yeah, if it's not bringing 50% more value, nobody's gonna stick around for it. Like
Absolutely.
if you're just gonna jack up the price and say nothing's changing, it's like, okay,
Yep.
that's like the same thing happened with Southwest. We're trying to figure out a trip to go on to burn through our Southwest points because they're about to jack up the price on the credit card.
And they're about to
And
make
they're
you pay for
lowering,
bags.
yeah, pay for bags, and they're lowering the worth of those points and things like that. And it's like, man, I'm just done with you guys.
Yeah,
I don't,
and then a lot of people feel that way. So there is a tipping point,
yeah,
and when it comes to that, those people who are in power, or at least the ones making the decisions, sometimes that's the only way to get their attention.
mm-hmm. It's just yeah, you just want, if you're gonna trust any company, follow one that's gonna, lean into their culture rather than away from it, right?
Definitely.
Because like that is so kind. Like there are so many business books or that like mention Southwest in them and how they like rose to prominence from like establishing their culture, and then now it's like they get a little bit of like venture capitalist money, and like they just are gutting that culture and
Oh
going
yeah,
down.
right.
Like it's crazy.
Now I'll have to go back and rewrite those books. Be like, we
Right.
said this company was
Yeah.
someone to look towards, but maybe not as much now.
Yeah. In 2025, they took a bad turn.
Yeah, going back to the mental health aspect, just the way that society views jobs now and how jobs are chosen. Maybe not so much at positions where you're making minimum wage or around that level, but at least in the corporate world, you hear of countless stories of individuals who have graduated from college, already spent all that money, and then they're like, okay, hopefully this gets me a good job, and that's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
You send 100+ emails a day trying to find a job, and it takes you 4 months until you finally find something that's well below what you should be financed at, and that takes a toll on your mental health as well.
Yeah, and then whoever snatched you up knows they got you because you were desperate, so you're not gonna have to fight for a salary or anything. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's pretty rough out there. That is another discussion for sure. And how to help our kids, enter a job market and stuff like that. It's, as far as I've seen, it's really all about who you know these days. Like you have to make those connections and bond with people. And I mean, it was true when we were exiting college too. Like
absolutely,
I didn't get much luck when I was just blanketly applying for stuff.
Right.
The only way I got my foot in the door in an agency was a friend had already gotten a job there, and he was like, "Oh, this guy's great." And lo and behold, I had 2 offers the next week, and it was like,
that's so much more common.
I've been working so hard.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not about what you know, but who you know. That's so true, and it's only going to continue that way, in my opinion. So they've said that millennials are the most educated generation in history, but also under the most amount of stress, and a lot of it is due to that.
Yeah.
We were told, hey, if you go to college and get an education, you'll land yourself a good job.
Yeah.
And it did not pan out
the
that way.
student loans will just pay themselves off. Yeah.
Right. It's now, at least in my opinion, I think I mentioned this on the podcast before, but the trades are really making a resurgence. There's just not a lot of people who are in it, and so there is money to be made. It's not so much now about where you go to school or what you get a degree in. You have to get your foot in the door anywhere, as you said, so making those connections early.
Yeah. Which, for all our listeners, we will, on our whiteboard, have a financial independence topic somewhere down the road. So
I like that.
Stay subscribed so that you can catch us talk about that at some point, because I have thoughts.
Good, because I'll talk on the podcast and then I'll go back and listen to it so that I can make sure that I am gaining the knowledge I need to.
I'm sure you have some tidbits of wisdom in there.
Oh, I have plenty of wisdom. I'm not sure if it's useful wisdom. I have plenty of tidbits. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we're about an hour in down here with minus some edits. So, anything else you want to say to people about staying strong and living life to the fullest?
No, just reach out if you find yourself struggling with anything. If you think you may be having negative thoughts, talking, just in anything, reach out to your inner circle, to anybody. There are empathetic people in the world. I know sometimes it doesn't seem that way, but there are people, willing to help. So, don't go through life alone.
Yeah, I think the age-old wisdom is that your friend doesn't know you have a problem until you say you have a problem.
Right.
Especially dudes.
Yes.
I think women are a bit more in tune with it, but I know at least the numerous guy friends I have that I eventually find out they had a problem. I'm like, I didn't know, man. You didn't say anything.
Right.
Like, we don't pick up on that kind of stuff.
We don't pick up on it, and society kind of like almost still to this day looks down on that. Like you're kind of told not to be that way. But I'm telling you here now, don't listen to that. If you think you're struggling, or if you are, reach out.
All right, man. Well, that's a good enough sign up for me.
All right. Thank you for your time and attention.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to Dad's Discuss.
Please like and subscribe wherever you are listening.
Also, comment any topics you would like us to discuss and share this with your friends and family.
Finally, if you would like to be on the podcast or discuss any topics, please reach out via our contact information below.